a lot of people, and we've said this tons of times, you go into this, I'm going to license this and I'm going to be hands off. But the majority of everybody we've talked to in our scenario end up starting to run a business. Whether you know how or wanted to, you end up doing it. And man, you don't know what you don't know until you get into it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you know how, you probably don't know how.
Yeah. Or you think you do,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you definitely, I think, I mean, that was a big thing for me, was just starting. I always wanted to do it, but I was always scared to start. And I think just starting, kind of makes it less scary,
Why do you think most people don't want to start a business? What do you think their biggest fear is about that?
I mean, I know mine, a big part was obviously success, right? Am I going to just fail? Fear of failure was a big one for me. And then, it's, I think I was just scared to start, I don't know about for you guys.
Well, I'm really lazy and I hate paperwork and all that junk. For me, it was the physical filings and the upkeep of a business. Do I have to get a permit from my city? Okay, the answer to that is no. Do I have to get a permit from my state? Yeah, you need a seller's permit. Okay, and then federally, how do I register? So then you get on like a LegalZoom and you kind of fumble your way through opening your LLC through LegalZoom or whatever it is. But until I got a professional accountant, I always felt like a phony. I always felt like, what am I missing? I know somebody's going to knock on my door one day wearing a black suit and say the jig is up. Mm-hmm. You're not allowed to make and sell straps. And that day hasn't come, and I've since educated myself enough to understand all the legal obligations I have, and I'm compliant. And there really isn't a lot, to be honest.
No. Yeah.
There's not a lot. It's pretty much all that I needed and Marcus needs to sell our products nationwide, worldwide. I'll say nationwide is seller's permit, which you can get in California for free, and insurance to cover your ass on your product, and that's about it. I think most people go the LegalZoom route or try to do it cheaper like I did because, hey, you got no money. You're just starting out. But I really encourage people, a rough quote is like, for $500, LegalZoom will do it all, but you're always going to have a question mark. If you ever want one-on-one tender love and care, you're going to have to pay their ancillary fees. It's going to amount to what it would cost you just to pay somebody in your town, a business solutions and tax expert, and then you have certainty. And then you can go in and look them in the eye and say, are you good? What happens if I get audited? Are you covering my sale and use tax? And how much does that cost?
And a lot of that you figure out as you go. You're exactly right. I mean, we pay our taxes, and if you miss something on the taxes, you're so afraid that they're gonna find me, and I did it wrong, and I'm gonna get screwed. And that probably was my biggest fear is I'm not, I'm great at inventing something in my garage. I'm not great at keeping all my receipts, or I wasn't. I've definitely gotten better, but making sure everything is this, and what do I write off, and oh my gosh, and you just get better at it. You just got to know that you just get into it and you learn as you go, and there's a million resources out there. And one thing you brought up too is just being embarrassed. I never felt the embarrassment in the beginning. I think unsurety and being overwhelmed maybe. But, what do you, especially around your peers and things that you're starting a company, what do you call yourself? How do are you the president of my new company? It sounds like a 5-year-old being like, I'm the president of this, But the truth is you are. And it's a legit company. I still, when somebody asks me, what do? I might say 10 other things before I'm like, I run a company or a founder of a company. It just doesn't feel real.
Yeah. No, that took me a while to get there too. Just saying, I used to joke. I had a kind of coping joke. I'd say, oh, I'm unemployed, and then everyone would just laugh.
I say it all the time to my wife. I'm like, yeah, I can go. I don't have a job.
Yeah, exactly.
When I have the most important job at the company. So you posed a pretty good question to us after lunch. It was like, did you guys ever feel, what did you say?
Embarrassed.
Embarrassed, yeah. Did you ever feel embarrassed starting your company?
Yeah. I mean, it took me a while to not feel embarrassed. I think once you get in revenues, it helps.
Yeah.
It was like,
doesn't hurt.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it just kind of, it was kind of cringy to me to put, on your LinkedIn, I'm an owner of a company now, and it just, it just made me think back to like, high school when people would start the t-shirt companies and, they put entrepreneur in their bio and, I didn't want to be that.
So you didn't want to be that, but what is that? What is that fear? Fundamentally, what is it that hurts your heart inside? Have you identified that?
Maybe I need to go to therapy. Maybe we do therapy.
That's what
after
we're here
this.
for. It's going to be an extra $50.
No, I think ultimately it came down to fear of failure. It's just, it was like, I think growing up a lot of times I didn't live to my full potential. And I was scared that if I ever did try my hardest and try with my full potential, it wouldn't be enough, I think was kind of the base for that. Because I kind of floated through school and, I didn't really try. I didn't really, and everyone was like, you're not living to your potential. But I think it scared me that what if my potential's shit, Is it better to just be, oh, he didn't live up to his potential, or to fail at, trying your hardest, right? So,
were you the type of student who everybody says you're so smart, but you don't apply yourself, or were you just straight up dumb like I was?
I was the more applied myself type. Yeah, it was just, you're not applying yourself, you're not trying, and I didn't really take school seriously. Especially, high school I took a little more seriously, but not. In middle school, obviously, I just kind of knew it didn't matter at all, right? So. That led to a lot of...
That sounds like an entrepreneur to me, like straight up.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to rebel, you know, so...
I think the typical view of, well, it's funny because your background, I think mine, maybe a little bit of Marcus's, it reflects someone who fits the mold of an entrepreneur in the fact that school doesn't quite make sense to them, kind of have the dropout, I can do this better myself mentality. But also, everybody thinks of an entrepreneur as someone who, whether they're 35 years old or 5 years old, their mindset's pretty much the same. When they were 5, they were trying to peddle Pokemon cards or trying to sell candy bars or open a lemonade stand. And now they're 35, they're just doing it on a bigger scale. But we kind of object to that because Marcus and I, we've never really considered ourselves instinctive entrepreneurs. I had never opened a lemonade stand. Sure, we all mowed lawns and junk just to make some walking around money, but I wasn't ever thinking, how can I scale this? How many more customers can I get? Blah, blah, blah. So I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm nothing like a Bezos, or I'm nothing like the Nike story where I was just born into this stuff, always thinking about it. Maybe you're a guy who just hits his breaking point at age 25, at age 35, 50, and you say, enough is enough. I'm sick of working for people. I'm going to look into this whole entrepreneurship game.
I think you get hung up on the word, the wording of that. Even entrepreneur. For me, if you say entrepreneur, I'm thinking somebody who raised $500 million to go public with their company, or somebody who did that. It's just a word, and it just describes someone who's getting out there and doing it, right? Who's putting forth the effort. And I think that's what a lot of us inventors have to get over. That it's okay to say you're an entrepreneur, and it's also okay to say you're running a business, or you're starting a company. The truth is you are.
Right.
Whether it's successful or not, and you're embarrassed to tell people, or you're nervous that it's not going to make it, none of that matters. You're still starting a company. It's 100% legit. It's going to get to that, and I think you're going to grow into the big words that you were afraid to call yourself, a year ago when you were, starting out in nothing.
Yeah, and it's interesting actually, because I think we have a little bit of the opposite, where I was around a lot of people that, it was raised funding, did this and that. And it's funny that you say entrepreneur, like, oh, they have to raise this 500 million. Because when I hear about them, every company I know that's, anecdotally raised money, it's all, they never actually do anything with it. They never make a product. They never do anything. So to me, it's kind of, I actually am like, I hate the whole raising money. Like, to me, that's not an entrepreneur at all, because it's all, you don't hit revenues for 10 years. And I just don't think that's like the real world. If you're running a business is real, right? Like, you have to make money. You can't just sit around for investors for, and burn through $100,000 a month on bullshit, So I think, what you guys are is by far more entrepreneurial than going to pitch competitions and raising money and talking to investors and all that, you know?
We'd
But
like to
you're in
think
the
so.
same boat too. I mean,
Yeah.
we talked about it at lunch. You're right. There's so many companies who are entrepreneurs in the more institutionalized sense, where they went to school and they went into the entrepreneurship programs and the STEM programs, designing them to be a founder. And that's great. We need those. Those are the Musks and the Bezos, the Theranoses too, you know, wink, wink. But in reality, when you if you look at it at a stage before that, why do we really get into business? We get into business to make profit, pay ourselves a fair salary, and cash out big at the end of the year or when we just liquidate the company. You can do that with that crazy big founder pump up valuation mentality, but that's a lot of politicking, it's a lot of BSing, and it's not a whole lot of making. Now, at our scale, is small business scale, where you're just looking at, hey, I'm an inventor. How do I have a group of 2 or 3 people around me that I trust? And how do I make good profit? That's fine. You can live a low-key life being a president or CEO of your own little company. You can run a $15 million a year company with 2 helpers. I mean,
Right.
It's 2024. Everything is so darn scalable. But like you were saying, there's these other companies that are just like, okay, well, we have an idea for something super insane, like a Theranos, for example. 1 drop of blood, and we can take a panel of 126 data points, just something that's just wildly difficult. I applaud that. The U.S. needs that, but we're inventors. Let's be honest. We're just thinking, I have 1 or 2 good ideas. How can I make the most money off them as possible and do it efficiently and have an okay time doing it? And that's that you're in the exact right space. You're in a space where you have to focus on profit. How much can I get this for? How much can I sell it for? And how can I eliminate all those little trolls and charlatans along the way who want to take all the money out of my pocket? Because we know they're abundant.
Well, and I don't think, I think bringing it back to being fearful of just starting a business, I think you do everything because you don't have the money in the beginning. And as you start going along, you realize what you're good at and what you're not good at. And it gives you the opportunity to start looking outside of yourself. And there are a ton of those. We've talked about a bunch of them on previous podcasts, but like, let's say accounting, which I'm not good at, right? That's not true. I can do it. I don't want to do it.
Right.
And it's just, my brain capacity for it. There are like the fractional accountants and part-time people who can handle that, and there are programs, there are a ton of great programs that you can take a screenshot of your receipt and it automatically uploads the amount and it just keeps track of things. And that's what I'm tapping into now because I'm sloppy. I'll be honest. I haven't done a good job of, I go to lunch and I'm legitimately taking somebody talking about the company, but I don't really pay attention to that. And now I just want to keep track because that'll be important down the road. But to all those people who are like, it's overwhelming and there's too many things. Yeah, it is overwhelming. There are too many things, but you start sussing out which ones you can handle, which ones you can't, and then you find resources for that. And you just do. You just don't be afraid to start the company.
Yeah. And it's also much more overwhelming if you're aiming for like a unicorn, if you're
Yeah.
trying to be a billionaire. I think that's a big thing right now, especially I want to be a billionaire, sure. But, it's, there's still day-to-day life, like you don't let that get in the way of starting something,
Sure.
Making money too, even to fund a bigger idea is what a lot of people have done,
Yeah.
And I think the big thing, the reason we could have raised money and raised, got investors and done all that.
Do you think you would have been smart with it? Do you think you would have, I don't mean go out and buy
Yeah.
a Ferrari, but
Right. I don't know. That's a tough question. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we probably would have put a lot in bad places for
Yeah.
one. But also I didn't start it to have another boss.
Right.
I don't want a board telling me I need to get a report. I mean, it feels much less your own business if you have to report to, you have to report to a board, you have to report to this. You can't really make a decision without having the board involved. You can't justify a $1,000 plane ticket without a board member. It just kind of gets...
Well, somebody else's money. And I heard there was a podcast and the guy he's like, we started a company, we're doing well. We raised like $100,000 for this first round of whatever it was. He said, we went and we got an office space And we did this, and we kind of blew through our money. And very quickly, we realized, you know what? My garage was just fine for an office space. We just blew through $100,000 for nothing, and we have nothing for it.
Yeah.
So it does. Like, you have to be smart before you even go into that mindset.
Yeah, and they buy the top of the line equipment. They buy, like you don't need to burn $30,000 a month for a service.
Yeah.
That's crazy,
I burned through a lot of money just being cocky. Kind of in the beginning, I had a lot of sales early from going viral, but I wasn't planning ahead. So I thought, okay, well, I just sold all my inventory. I'm sitting on 70 grand. Hey, honey, you want me to throw 10 grand in the personal account so you get some walking around money, maybe get you some shoes, and just little things like that. I can only imagine if I also had somebody who said, yeah, here's 500 grand. I love TorkStrap. Here's 500 grand. Just do what you can with it. Like you got to spend money to make money. Sure, there would have been a little bit more consideration because there's the guilt of other people's money.
Right.
But the point is, in the beginning, you don't know how to turn a profit because you've never turned a profit.
Right.
So getting a loan could really kick you in the butt. It could really cripple you. I think I said this in last episode, but if I had gotten like $100,000 year one, I wouldn't be able to tell you today what I spent it on. I mean, I could generalize it and tell you it's bull crap, but I wouldn't be able to say, oh, thank God I invested that 40 grand into an email marketing specialist survey or a market analysis to see if TorkStrap was viable. Like, no, those are terrible investments. And I would have done something done like that because you just feel like you can.
So here's a question for you. If you could go back and respend the largest amount of money that you've spent on any one thing, what would you spend it on? Would it be on a good marketing campaign? Would it be on getting more product? What would it be?
Like the largest bill or largest concept that I threw money at?
I think concept, yeah.
I would say the largest concept I threw money at was, it was really bad manufacturing. That's not much of a concept, but it's basically I threw a lot of money at trying not to go to China, trying to have a hands-off approach, putting too much faith. But that's a little bit different. I would say as far as like just total dead-end expenditures, I probably bought too much camera equipment and junk like that for TorkStrap too early. When in reality, social media videos that go viral, they're shot on a cell phone, which I already had in my pocket.
Right.
So why did I have to go spend $6 grand on cameras and spend $50 a month on Adobe suite of products to be able to edit this?
Dopamine boost.
What?
Dopamine boost.
Oh, I thought you were making fun of my pronunciation of Adobe suite. Adobe is sweet boost.
Adobe is sweet. No, I know it's like you got the money. It's burning a hole in your pocket. You have the ability to buy some sexy equipment and stuff like that. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and now looking back, I realize, hey, one camera was enough. Or we do the podcast now. I'm glad we have the cameras, as you can see. But at that time, was it justified? No way.
Yeah.
Writing off my wife's car, hope the IRS isn't listening, but we legitimately use that car for sales because it gets much better fuel.
Good save.
Yes, good save. Scoop that one up. My accountant said, she's like, hey, you use it for sales, that's a business expense. Which was cool, that was like an ego thing. Like, don't worry, honey, the business is covering the cars and the expenses and the insurances and the cell phones. But that was a little too early to do that junk. So you can pretty much surmise by what I'm saying. In those first 2 years, I focused too much on how much can I write off. We think a write-off is making money. A write-off is a bad thing. Remember that. By definition, writing off means you lost money. So everybody's like, oh, and then, I want to start a business because then I can write off. And yes, you're 100% right. That's how you get out of paying your ridiculous tax burden as a W-2 employee. But it is a bottomless pit, or not. It's a rabbit hole. You can get sucked into it for all the wrong reasons. You convince yourself that every penny you quote invest in your company is a good investment when really it's a loss or it's too soon or what have you. But I think concisely, you asked me what I would spend that money on today.
Yeah.
Today, it's quite simple. more meta marketing,
Yep.
Facebook and Instagram
Yep.
ads, because that's exactly how I get my sales. I know my exact return. So for example, I spend $9,000 a month in ads right now. I would take that $6,000 and I'd say, let's see what happens if I throw another couple thousand a month. Maybe that'll 3x our sales instead of just adding 20%. You know, I know how to play with money now to where my return is pretty much a guarantee.
That's what I was going to say. For me, it would be advertising. The one big amount of money that I was nervous to spend up until this point, like literally, you know, in the next week or so, is I wish I had the balls to put forth the X amount of thousands of dollars for advertising. And you're so nervous. You're like, that's so much money. Literally, that's 3 times my mortgage on my house that you're like, I'm going to put out this week or, you know, this month. And you can't justify it, but you have to jump off the ledge a little bit there, you know, or take a leap of faith and put forth that money, because then you start the ball rolling, and that's when it's going to happen. What about you? What would you want to spend money on that you could have and didn't?
That I could have and didn't. Honestly, nothing really.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we were scrappy. We got the equipment we needed. We got everything, you know. And I guess it's not to be like scared of spending money either. You know, in the beginning too, it's fine. I guess like I do think it's fine to eat some shit, you know, because I think if you don't eat any shit, you're not going to start, you know? Like,
Sure.
So I think like a couple stupid mistakes in the beginning. Don't blow your life savings on going to a crazy company, but talked about that.
The Inventor based scam companies.
Yeah.
1-800-INVENT blankety or inventblank.com. Like anything with invent in the title, except for our podcast, is pretty much a scam.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I have no regrets about any money we did spend. I don't have wish we could have spent more. You know,
And
I think,
aside from money, is there anything you really wish you would have done sooner?
started.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great one.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I kind of want to take back something I said. I said it, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I said something to the effect of, if you don't tinker with something, you know, you got to like tinker with something to even start. Otherwise, you know, maybe, you know, you're going to come with kind of nothing. I'm not a tinkerer, you know. If I wanted to make a product, I don't know that I'd start because of that, right? Like, so I kind of regret saying that, because if I had an idea that I thought legitimately could work and I did research, right, and I don't know that I'd build it myself, right? So I would have had to find someone like, you know, how I did to even start a business, right, with my co-founder. And so I just had that in the back of my mind.
Yeah. So to clarify, you're saying your last visit here, you felt like you kind of maybe turned off people who weren't like tinker, technical guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I agree. And I've said similar stuff. I've said things as brazen as like, hey, if you're not willing to make your own sell sheet, then you're not cut out for this. But that's not fair.
Yeah.
I mean, you could honestly have no arms and legs and still do this. It's all up here pointing to my head. If you have the ability to inspire people or convince people, I wouldn't say manipulate people, but, you know, essentially you're getting people fired up and willing to help you.
Yeah.
And most of the time that's money. But even giving people money to help you is tough. Like, you could have Marcus saved up a ton of money to start his business, but still when he speaks to manufacturers, he's got to talk the talk, be a little bit schmoozy and understand the lingo. That's worth more than him having $400,000 ready to spend. What the manufacturer wants to know is, how much work is it going to be working with Marcus? And going back to what you're saying, these guys who may be guys and gals who aren't tinkerers, that's okay. I mean, I don't imagine that, you know, we joked about Theranos, but she was technical, but she was just a college student. And with her mind, she was able to rally multiple old men with white hair to back her and support her and invest in her.
Well, and that was her strong set. You know, that was her skill, was that, right? I mean, you could be the best, you could build the best company in the world by putting together the right team and not know anything. But what I had said takes away from that, right? It's like, it's okay if you don't have a skill to start. Maybe you're not good at starting, maybe that's fine, but down the line, you might, for example, what you just said about Marcus, he's really good with the manufacturers, right? Maybe that's the key, right? Maybe that's it. Like that's, that's all.
I think every step of this for any of us is learning to be better at pulling together resources.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the one thing is you don't have to fear anything because at some point you're going to pull together the people who know more than you do about whatever it is. And as long as I really feel, and you might have even said it, is just doing it, getting out there, which is funny because I want to throw a shout out. A couple of our listeners have reached out this past week and a half. We got Billy and we got Sean, and these two guys, man, they're absolutely took the leap of faith and they're kicking ass, and we'll share more as their products, get a little further along, and I'm excited to share about them. But it is nothing more awesome than getting a call from somebody and being like, I was so afraid to do it. I had all these fears. I just did it. And man, every morning I get up so stoked and ready to do it. And they both have great products, and I'm super excited to keep forward. But I mean, that's all of us.
Yeah.
I'm scared shitless one day. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. But then the next day, you couldn't be more psyched, and you're on par. I'm starting to see realistic sales now, good sales. Every day they're increasing. Man, it makes all that crap worth it. It makes all those things worth it. But yeah, it's a resource game.
Yeah.
You start to get better and better and realize what you don't know, and then you find somebody who knows more than you, and then you hopefully at that point you have enough money to hire that person, and it becomes a snowball.
Yeah, and it shouldn't stop you regardless of the stage just because you're not good at that maybe aspect of the stage, you know?
So you've been in business about a year and a half now with Volcreate. What scares you now? Is there anything that scares you now? Like you're seeing a trend that you're just like, maybe I'm still phony or something. What is it?
No, I mean, now it's more business centered, right? Like, you have to, we're project based, right? So financial projections aren't easy, right? Finding your slow seasons, finding, more ways to get just customers, right? The only thing that scares me is like, oh shit, what if it all shuts off? Like that. I think that's.
Have you experienced tax advantages yet? The way you run your business, are you kind of getting into that world, or is it still like too early?
A little bit. Not so much. It's not like we took owner's drafts pretty much for the first while, so it's not like we took that much out of the company itself to pay ourselves. So there wasn't that much to benefit from, right? So, but yeah, we've explored some of the, benefits of, what we can do as far as taxes, and I know there's a lot out there, but not so much for us yet.
Yeah.
And what did make you transition from the last time you came on? It was really about focused on the beginners and the I have an idea. What made you tap into what might be more important is the business side of it. So primarily the primary switch was like doing more animation stuff and doing things like that. We still do the prototyping, still do all that. It's typically more like startups that are funded. A big part of the switch was just, it's just not a good business. It's just not the margins. We're trying not to charge that much for prototypes and charge that much for things, but it's, that doesn't lead to high margins. Prototypes take a while. It takes a long time to do everything. You have to pay engineers. So animations are a little more simple and like add-on services. Like, let's say you came to me with a product, right? Maybe the prototype we don't make that much margin on, but you come and you say, hey, we got some more money. We want some animations done. The animations we already have all of it modeled. We have all of it done. So it's an easier transition for us to make an animation, right? Because we're not making it from scratch. We're taking what we have. So just better margins, and I never wanted to like charge people a lot, or be,
helping people was at the front of your mind, right?
Yeah. And I've talked to people that paid, $70K in CAD for like something this big that's not that complex.
We had a gentleman on here who paid a lot for a prototype. It's hard because you don't want to knock the I want to help people's mentality, and then you don't want to feel like a hypocrite by saying, well, that wasn't making us enough money and we got into something. But that's the truth is it wasn't.
Right.
And you don't want to struggle your whole life to help other people, get out of their struggles.
Right.
There's a happy balance. And I think it's absolutely okay to admit that straight up helping people is not as easy, and you can't do it if you're not making any money yourself.
Right.
I think a lot. I've talked to a lot of inventors, and they're like, I'm making this to help people, and I want to do this. There's a lot that has to happen first before you have the ability to straight up help people. And you definitely don't want to do it at your expense.
Right.
You can do it, but don't do it at your expense.
Yeah, and we've thought about it. I mean, even so, like we're a fifth of the price of a normal prototype, right? But if we were half, it's still like, it's still
still doing people a favor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that kind of, originally our pricing was so low that I think literally anyone that's went to our site probably thought we were a scam.
Yeah.
Like there was no way that anyone would do it that cheap. But,
I think that's how we all started with the pricing.
Yeah.
Thought I'll be the price leader and everything will be hunky-dory because I'll get all the clients. It's so dang difficult to scale on a low price because now you have to hire people to help you carry out these transactions because you're trying to do them at a volume game instead of a profit game. You have to find balance. Some companies anchor really high and they're going for the 10X model. They say sayonara to the small clients and hello to their 3 big ones, and they're good with that. Mm-hmm. It's tough, but you got to find out what you value and how you can help people the most and at what price. Starting a business isn't as scary as you think. Well, I touched on taxes with you a little bit, Blake, but one big thing that I want to bring up that's important in this inventor's journey that we talk about it every damn episode, licensing versus developing it yourself. Now, we've brought up a lot of points of why licensing, it's pretty much good for gas money, whereas developing the product yourself could change your life money, change your life money. Now, granted, it's 2 very different approaches. Developing it yourself is a very much more hefty investment of time and money, but the rewards are just 15x, minimum 15x. But one thing I never brought up was the tax advantages of running your own business that you don't get when you license. So here's a scenario. You have a cool invention idea. You somehow license it after begging 45 companies to take your phone call. The 45th one takes your call. They give you a terrible deal because you have no leverage. And now they're cutting you a check for $250 a month after a year of developing the product, okay? So that's kind of a best case scenario and for a lot of products. Now, what's happening with that money? It's just a $250 check that comes in, but now the IRS looks at it and says, okay, this is 1099 income that's coming out of nowhere, so we're going to tax your ass at self-employment tax plus income tax plus all of our other taxations that come with your state. And so you get a $250 check that ends up being $145 after taxes, and that's it. You can't use that money. You if you ran a business now, by contrast, every dollar you get into the business, you can reinvest into the business before the IRS takes out that huge chunk. So not only do you get way less money in the licensing game, but you pay full taxes just like a sucker of a W-2 employee that you are trying not to be. But when you run a business, you can take advantage of all this stuff. And I'll give you guys just a quick humble flex. I didn't make a ton of profit last year, but historically we would go to our tax place and they'd be like, okay, yeah, you guys did pretty good. You get $2,000 back, or, oh, you guys kind of screwed up on the home purchase. You owe the IRS $800, whatever it is. This year, because I run a business and because my accountant knows what to do with the inventory and when to roll it from 2022 to 2023 and all these little things, we got back like $33,000 cash money.
Wow.
That type of shit doesn't happen when you're trying to license. In fact, the opposite. When you're trying to license, your accountant's going to look at this and be like, what's all this random ass? Why have you been getting $250 checks all year? Well, we got to report that. We got a tax on that. And now you owe the IRS a third of all that money on top of whatever your obligation was. So I just want to say that to clear the air and also give people the motivation that starting your business could be something, because it's part of the magic, right? You said that word, the magic that happens as you run a business. What other fears do you think people inherently have about starting a business?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I just know like what was so on my mind, because I mean, my whole life I wanted to run my own business. So I think like my mindset might be different than someone that's inventing something that just wants to maybe, oh, I want this invention to take off. This licensing thing sounds easy enough. You know, I don't even have to make it, you know, yada, yada. I think mine's pretty different just because the way I was kind of structured and what I told myself, and, you know, oh, by this point I should have started something, you know, like things like that, where I think that on that end, I don't think there's much value I can give to like someone maybe making an invention. As much as, you know.
You know, I think I have a good one, and we touched this before. Is I think a lot of people also think it's just going to be too much damn work, and it is a lot of work, especially in the beginning and in general. But you know, especially with TikTok and Instagram, all we see are those dudes, and they're like, if you know, to be successful, you have to put in 232 hours a day, 27 days a week, and you're like, what? That doesn't even. That's not even, and I think in the three of us, because we talked about it,
Yep.
it's like sometimes I have a real guilt, and I'm getting over that, but I have a real guilt if I don't put in 10 to 15 hours a day thinking I'm not doing enough to make my company work. And the truth is I put in solid hours, and I do a lot within those hours, and then sometimes I just don't have anything to do.
Yeah.
Right? I've kind of ticked off my boxes for that day. And like you said, sure, I could make some cold calls, or I could put out some emails, but the return on that isn't whatsoever worth the amount of effort it would take when you could be recharging your batteries, your mental battery, or your whatever, or spending time with your family, or whatever it may be. I want everybody out there to also know that starting a company and being successful doesn't mean you have to ruin your life and do nothing. You know, that's everything you're doing all the time.
Yeah.
So, and have you found that? Like you said that too.
I mean, I think the big workload is honestly the risk part of like just trying to get out of your own way is most of the work, you know, like actual hours a day. A lot of the times it's just getting out of your own way to just do something, you know, like, you know, you could spend 2 hours thinking about an email and think you're being productive, which it's sure you could do that 4 times a day and work a full 8 hours. But, no, I think a lot of it's spinning. It's just spinning the wheel, and I think that's counterproductive, because, you know, you feel like shit when like you're doing a lot and nothing's working. It's like, oh, my world's caving in. You know, I'm doing all this shit. I'm cold calling. Well, yeah, you didn't think it was going to work. You did it because you felt guilty about not doing something that day.
That's a good point.
You know, so you do it, and you just, it makes you feel shittier because you're not getting results.
And you said the word there, guilt. You asked me after lunch if I ever felt guilt, and I said, hell yeah, man. Like, I left my job at AT&T on a Friday, and that Monday morning, I was going to start officially full-time at my new business. For AT&T, I had to wake up at 5:15 in the morning and be in the Valley by 6. For some reason, I had to wake up at 5:15 on Monday morning. Although I didn't have to, I was guilty. It's ridiculous little things we feel. The imposter syndrome, all that stuff. You feel guilty that unless I'm bleeding, I didn't try hard enough. Unless I'm scarring right now for my company, I didn't try hard enough. But it's bullcrap, because you know what? I started that company on 2 hours a day. Legit, I would think about it all day long, but I started that company on 2 hours a day. For 2 years while I was a lineman. Every morning 50% of the mornings I would get up at like 2:30 in the morning and work from 2:30 to 5:30, and then put on my clothes and go to work. Now, realistically, that's probably, I scaled that, and I had plenty of days where I worked like 9 hours, But honestly, on average, dude, I work like 5.5 hour days. That's it.
Yeah.
Just good, honest at the computer work, 5.5 hour days. If we want to go shoot some new content or whatever, that really doesn't change. I just do a little bit less office work and I do more field work. If I need to visit the warehouse, whatever, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not working till 7 at night just because I visited the warehouse. Like, no, you scale properly. You find the people that can do the things that you don't have time for. And damn it, you're the owner. Like you deserve to put yourself in a place where you don't have to work 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
I don't know of anyone's goal besides 9 to 5 workers. My wife and I were just talking about this. In the 9 to 5 realm, all you can hope for is working more hours.
Right.
She's a data scientist. You come in as a 27-year-old data scientist, cool. You can work 8-hour days and we'll pay you a fair salary. You want to become a manager? Okay, kiss your nights and weekends goodbye. Okay, and then after that, when you're in your 40s, you'll become a director and your life is this company.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth until you retire. And at age 67, you get to enjoy your earnings. You cash out your crummy IRA and 401k and you got a busted hip and you go travel to France. Like, that doesn't sound fun.
Yeah, that part has never really like clicked with me. Like, I feel like we have like kind of like a busy culture almost. Like, you know, people brag about like, oh yeah, you know, I'm doing 20 hours a day. You know,
I stopped taking a salary.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just working for free at this point. I just, you know, I'm just crazy like that.
Yeah, it's just kind of like it's so kind of backward. I mean, you know, it's just
It's
like
dumb.
why wouldn't you want to work less? Like, shouldn't you work less?
That
you
should
know?
be
Like,
the goal.
You don't. It's always just been strange to me. It's never really clicked, and I think I've always felt guilt about that because it's never really clicked. Like, even, you know, my career, like, it's not like I had to work the full 8 hours. You know, I could have found stuff to do, I suppose, but I don't think it would have.
I mean, I think the moral of that is don't feel guilty for not putting in hours that you don't need to.
Yeah.
Like these unrealistic. You're going to hit a point where you're no longer benefiting yourself or not benefiting yourself enough, and you would be much better off getting that recharge or just thinking about something totally different. It could be nothing. One of my favorite things is to not think about business and what I'm doing, and I need that.
Yeah.
You know, you need that, but it is, and I think that's a big fear for people. It's like, my life is going to be consumed by, you know, you go to a 9 to 5, which is what you said, and you don't have to think about taxes and payrolls and you know, keeping track of things and inventory. But that stuff's totally manageable when that is your only job. That doesn't take up that full day, and you space it out, or you eventually find people who do that. And that is definitely not something to be afraid of.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is I think people like sometimes attribute like luck to work too. Like, they were like, oh, they didn't really have like a reason for why they were successful, but, you know, like for why it really worked. So they're just kind of like, the easy answer is like, I just worked a ton, you know. But it's like, no, they weren't as risk adverse. They put themselves out there, and things like happened, things transpired, and, you know, there was some luck played a role, and it's not just about hours. I mean, if you look at like Elon Musk, I mean, he's the CEO of what, 4 companies? You think he's doing 40 hours a week on each of those companies? Or,
No,
you know,
no.
I mean, there's not enough time, right? So, I mean, obviously he's not, right? He's not putting
He's
in.
done okay for himself.
Yeah. He's not, but he's not working, you know, 180 hours a week.
No, for sure.
Right, you know, so.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, like Richard Branson, I mean, I think I brought him up a few times, but he's the king of saying, he's like, I didn't go through college and have all these degrees, and I'm not the smartest guy, and I'm dyslexic or whatever he says. He's like, but I sure as hell know how to hire people who are a lot smarter.
Yeah.
And that's it. And yeah, of course, us as business owners, that's what I was saying earlier, is you're going to do every bit of this yourself in the beginning. You're going to realize what your strengths are. Then you're going to start dedicating your time to those strengths and finding someone else to make up that difference. And that's okay. And you'll do that.
Yeah, that's interesting too. Like, not dedicating your time to the strengths is, I think, not natural for a lot of people, right? Like, they dedicate themselves to what they're weak at, right? Because they want to get better at that category. But I think that there's kind of like a analysis on maybe that weak thing isn't worth the time it's going to take you to get
and
better.
we might have talked about that last time, and that's good. Like for me, graphic design or something like this, right? I know how to use Photoshop, but not well.
Yeah.
And I could go on there. Every time I go on there, I sit down, and it takes me hours to get re-upped on knowing which key does what. And I watch a couple YouTube videos, and this is how you blend this picture. Or I could go on Fiverr, send them the thing, not have to worry about it, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And that's where I think realizing your strengths are what you're good at, and maybe you find something you want to be better at. There's tons of stuff.
Right.
But for those silly little things, that could take a whole day.
Yeah. And then you tell Grant you worked 10 hours that day.
There you go.
He's like, how the fuck did you work 10 hours that day?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I should work 10 hours a day.
And that was me not working smart.
Yeah.
And those 10 hours could have been 2 hours. I just took on a project that I thought maybe I could save money on. Or
Right.
It rarely works out that the thing you think you're going to save money on, especially as us in the beginning, you actually do, because you end up spending so many days trying to figure it out that it either evens out or you don't save enough and you've wasted the time you could have on something else.
Yeah. My house flooded and I thought I'd just rebuild it. So I took that on. It took me about 2 years to finish everything. I demoed it all. I did all the flooring. The flooring looks like, it looks like shit to me. Probably to the, someone that looks at it, they probably, it's all right. Yeah. But I so would have rather just spent, I was like, it's 15 grand for the flooring. I'm just going to do it and pay 3 for the flooring and just do it all. And
it took you 2 years. And
2 years, I had the baseboards off for a long time. I didn't get to the point of putting the baseboards on, but that was a whole year in itself of just, all right, like,
those are the projects you do in your 20s, and you say F that in your 30s. I used to love doing stuff. Well, not love, but I used to take on stuff like that, just like you, man. And anymore, it's like, no, my time value, even before I ran my own business, is like, I'll just work overtime and pay somebody to do that. I'm reading a book right now. It's really listening to a book. I don't read books. I only listen to them. Can't stand reading. And it's 10x is easier than 2x. Actually, Omid recommended that book to us. And in there, the author, Dan Sullivan, he describes a principle of want versus need. And I think this goes back to our guilt conversation. You might say to a neighbor, oh, I need an Escalade, because we go to Vegas twice a year. And the neighbor might say, well, you don't need that. Your truck's perfectly fine. Just get a cover, just get a that. So then what you have to do is you have to say, all right, you know what, neighbor, screw that. I want an Escalade, and I'm going to get it because I want it. And once you replace the word need with want, you don't have to justify these things anymore. Friends might say to you, oh, you run a business, you need to work 15 hours a day to make it successful. And you say, well, yeah, I don't want that, though. You may think I need that, but that's not what I want. What I want is to work 4 hours a day. Well, how do you think you deserve that? Doesn't matter. It's what I want. So those guilty thoughts, all that stuff, stop thinking about the normal things we justify. You got to work 8 hours a day minimum. You really need to put in OT. Yes, there's days where that's necessary, or maybe there's days like we talked to Billy Ward on a Google meet a couple days ago. He's like, dude, I'm so eager. I just want to do this all the time. But I'm finding out, as you guys have said, it's a hurry up and wait. You just got to slow down. Yeah. Nothing happens fast in this world of business, especially product development. And just relax and focus on what you want and figure out how to execute it, and don't ever feel guilty about that.
Yeah.
Marcus, I never asked you, did you have the entrepreneurial spirit when you were like 9?
No, not like that. You said it. I had a little car washing company with a buddy of mine, and we went around, and it was actually for being like 9 or I think I was 12 or something. We were killing it. We were detailing cars. We had our little bikes with our little bike trailers or whatever. And I guess that's kind of entrepreneurial.
Sure.
But ever thinking I was going to want to grow up and run a company or do something like this, I didn't think it was beyond me. I just never had it in me. I went to college, have a degree in consumer economics. Moved out to California, did nothing with that consumer economics degree and nothing in the business. It was in the movie and television industry, and flying drones for true crime shows and cool stuff, lots of cool stuff, but nothing entrepreneurial or business related until I started tinkering in my garage. I decided I had the product. I did that. Thought I was going to maybe look into, I mean, we've had this story 100 times. Oh, I'm going to license it or I can do this. And then realizing, talking to enough people who were like, nope, that's not the way you're going to do it. And it wasn't.
I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
I've been wondering, would you have given up? Would you have pivoted? Would you have given up at a certain point? Was there a point in your mind that it was like, hey, this product's not? Because it's possible that you guys could have picked a different product.
Sure.
Right? And it might not have worked. What does that theoretical look like? Do you guys give up at a certain point? Do you have a timeline? Do you have...
You want to start or should I?
No, I'll start. Many times, and even now, I mean,
Yeah.
I still think, there were many, I think when we talk about you start getting it out there, and we all have this fantasy that you're going to go on Amazon or you're going to make your website, you're going to put it out there, and all of a sudden the next day people are going to be like, this is the greatest thing ever, and I can't keep track of how many sales I've got. It just doesn't work that way. And for me, there were plenty of times where it was like 4 days of no sales, and I'm like, this is just dumb, and did I waste my money, and I've got all this stuff invested, and should I do this? Hell no. Like, it takes a few of those you get to a leveling off and like an average, and it's the analysis paralysis stuff we talked about. And as you start to see your average become more stable, then you start to get less and less afraid and not that whole, this isn't what I should be doing and this is stupid thing. And at least that's happened for me. But I still have those things. Like the money I'm putting out now, and I mean, Grant, Grant is making enough money that the money he spends on things he's doing, he has to do it. I'm still in the stage where I know I'm getting that money. I'm actually starting to get good sales, but the money I'm still putting out, I wouldn't say far exceeds, but kind of far exceeds the money I'm bringing in. So it's still a leap of faith, and my balls still shrink. I'm like, dude, this is real money. This is a year's. I'm about ready to buy to make another purchase of a manufacturing purchase, a shipment, and it's most people's year's salary.
Right.
My year's salary.
Right.
And I'm about ready to drop that in a month. And I'm like, holy crap. But now I'm not afraid to do it because I know the product's selling and it will sell. And it's just about how quick I can make it sell. And that was part of the early conversation too, about putting money into the advertising. In order to offload this $70,000 worth of product I'm about to buy, I might have to spend $5,000 to $6,000 a month in advertising. But look at Grant, he's spending $7,000, but making $75,000 or whatever it is. So to answer your question, many times during the process, I got overwhelmed and thought, this is stupid, and what am I doing? And I really feel like it's your ability to push past those moments, which is so much of that classic, what makes you successful, what doesn't. What about you?
Yeah, I had two big moments I can think of where I just thought, nope, that's it. That was my little test, and I failed. I'm done being an entrepreneur. And I think the first one was my first Kickstarter. Mm. I was asking for $4,000, and I remember my mom said to me, well, are you going to push this on Facebook and all that junk? And I was so young then, so ignorant. I'm like, no, Mom, no. I'm just gonna put myself out there on Kickstarter. If it gets funded, I don't know, maybe I should pursue this. If it doesn't, washing my hands of the situation, going back to climbing poles. She goes, oh, okay, fair enough. She didn't know anything about entrepreneurship either. And luckily, I think within that 30-day period that the Kickstarter was running, I learned that Kickstarters never get funded unless you independently market them. And I learned a little bit more about that landscape. But that was almost like I was almost looking for a reason to quit. I was almost looking for a way to puss out. And that one was saying, if this Kickstarter doesn't get funded, you're done, which is the dumbest thing you can ever say as an entrepreneur. You're going to have so many failed attempts at whatever, and to hinge your entire business, Terrence on episode 24, he talked about, You could have a whole shipment that's bad and just say, oh, screw it. But that is not the end. That's not it. The other big thing that happened to me was I took some bad tax advice from YouTube, and I thought that I had to file for taxation in every single state that I sold to. And that's not true. Not until you sell like minimum $100,000 to Texas, for example. Once you sell $100,000 to Texas, now you have to start collecting tax on your personal website, on your Shopify store, whatever it is. Well, I thought that I had to file with every state, so I just swamped myself with ridiculous work. I had filed in like 14 states. It was so complex and silly and terrible. Every state's website is different, government websites. And then a month and a half later, I get a bill from Illinois, ironically, where I'm from. You owe us $1,100. I haven't sold more than $50 of products to Illinois, but it's because you filed taxation in our state and you didn't give us a $0 report in November. So now you're a late filer, and that you're getting a fee of $1,100, whatever it was. Maybe it was a couple months accumulated. I almost cried, man. I was sitting in my at that time, my wife and I shared an office, and I freaking slammed my laptop shut. I almost cried. I was breaking down, and I'm just like, I'm not cut out for this stuff. I'm just not, honey. Like, I invented something, cool, pat on the back, but I'm done. Like, I'm just effing this all up. And she calmed me down, bro. But that was like the gun to the head moment for the business. It just, because that fear that you're trying to do something to better your family's financial situation, and you ruin it, you tarnish it. You're doing the exact opposite. I was just so mad at myself. And looking back, well, first I'll tell you what I did. What my wife told me was, just call the state, tell them what happened. You'll probably get it reduced down to damn near nothing. And she was 100% right. That's what I did. You just got to remain calm, know it's not the end, and take every problem head on. Remember that nothing is ever as good as it seems, and nothing is ever as bad as it seems. You can handle any of this stuff. Don't get overly excited because you have a chance to be on Shark Tank and it's going to change your life and you're going to be a millionaire. And don't get overly down when you get a faulty tax bill that you don't know how to deal with. It's not as bad as you think. This world is designed for humans of normal capacity to function in. You're a human of normal capacity. Maybe you're a little below average, but above average. But this world is designed for you to function in, and you can function in a business.
So how long did it take you guys to get your first sale, and how long would you have gone? What time period would it have taken for you to be like, fuck, maybe this isn't working? Or what would you think, if you went 2 weeks without a sale, if you went 3 weeks?
That's a good question. To the first part of your question, how long did it take for the first one? So I published my website. I made it live and public December 1st of 2020. And I had a pretty rough product then. I was making TorkStraps out of chopped up bungee cord parts. I think my first sale took a couple of days, and that was like friends and family type of sales, right? Like I reached out on Facebook. Even that was enough to give me faith that, okay, at least people like me. At least I have some friends who don't want to see me fail. They want to see me succeed. Had I not reached out on Facebook, I probably wouldn't have gotten a sale. Because keep in mind, people think, just because I have a website, I'm on the World Wide Web where people are searching crap like crazy. It is so competitive. So no, you're not going to get traffic. Like you've seen that. You let your website sit dormant, Marcus, and you get 0 visitors a day because unless you're actively pushing it and really hammering on your SEO on that website and running ads or running social media, the traffic just doesn't go there. If I went a month without any sale at all, I may have thrown in the towel, But I think at that point I had listened to enough to know if you don't market it, if you don't at least ask, you're not going to get anything.
Yeah, and I think that almost the same for me. My very first sale was my friend Pam, and I told her, hey, I'm on Amazon, and she literally went right then and bought it. And I think the first 10 sales I got were asks on my part for people to leave me reviews. And I even bought some for a few friends. I'm like, hey, order it and I'll pay you back. Just leave me a review, right? But I think it took about a week before I had an authentic person buy it. And that was an exciting moment. It was just one. My sales, it took a long time. And Grant is right. Like, it is really hard to just naturally bust out of there with big sales. And when I started to get 1 or 2 a day, then I started to feel good about it. But man, same thing. If I just wasn't getting sales, there definitely would have been a point where I'm like, this product is not going or whatever it is. It is so little. You see how many crap products there are out there, but if it's well marketed, it blasts. I mean, the pet rock, right? And not that it really boils down to you hustling to get your product in front of eyes, and then you start rolling.
Well, so I guess part of that, like for me, when I listen to the stories of people starting their business, there's a podcast, How I Built This, I used to listen to a lot. I don't, as a listener, I never got, okay, you got that first like one in a week, then you got to 1 to 2. How did you get that one even? Like that seems almost impossible, right? You have a brand new thing, I mean, in my eyes, it seemed, when I was a listener, how do you get one? How do you get 1 to 2 a day even? That's crazy.
And I really think probably the majority, maybe I would say 100% of us smaller inventors and new inventors, it's friends and family who boost you in the very beginning. And then your authentic things come probably from just maybe 1 or 2 people finding you. And then you realize, oh, I got to hustle and put that stuff out there. And then you start to see it. But I mean, I don't know about you, Grant, but I would say almost 100% of us probably had a friend or family member buy our first product.
Well, yeah, and I think, but the question you're asking is really good. It's about the nuts and bolts, the details that we all need. And the fact is, once friends and family dry up after the first 3 days, what the hell do you do? And the sad reality is you're going to go 30 days without a sale. And in that 30 days, you're going to be doubting yourself, and you're going to wonder what the hell. And then you're going to get suckered into some terrible marketing scheme because now you've got a website and you're on Facebook. Maybe some spammer, or not spammer, but salesperson's going to drop in your inbox and say, hey, do you want to be listed on the Off-Road magazine? We're going to put you on page 63 next to all of our new cutting-edge products. $449 will get you listed in 1 month's publication, plus 12 of our social media platforms, plus 6 of our affiliates. And you're like, holy crap. $449 is the answer to all my problems.
Right.
And you get 2 sales from it. Right.
And I tell you, those people find you first. It's amazing who comes out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
They're masters at finding you, or the people who want to take a buck from you. It's funny.
If it's a pay application, they're asking you to pay to be on their little news network, or do a little Skype interview for their little new tech upcoming show, but they're charging you for it. Do not do it.
Yeah.
So you're going to kiss some frogs in that sense. And then you're going to say, okay, well, shoot, maybe I'll start a Kickstarter. And that was the time that I started a Kickstarter. And the Kickstarter, luckily, I don't think it went, but I think I had like $2,500 in funding of my $4,000 goal. And to me, that was like, wow, money. So I'm like, okay, I just need to refine my process. Overall, though, I think you just have to be really scrappy, really desperate to get out of your current situation. That's what keeps you trying new things. And that was about the time I went viral on social media. We're talking 6 months into selling TorkStraps. I went viral. I had 500 units in my garage where my truck should have been. And overnight, I sold them all. It was like $4,000 in sales from one silly-ass viral video that I shot in my garage. Took me 20 minutes. I did it for free, and I sold $4,000. And I think every entrepreneur has to have that oh shit moment, that oh shit, this could work. Oh my God, I might be onto something. Yeah.
I mean, I sold my first month, I sold, I think, $4,000 worth. And I was like, oh, this is ready to rock. Yeah. And then it got cold outside here, and I sold almost nothing for a long time. I was down to like one, hoping I would sell 1 unit. And we had talked earlier about like, oh, should I be giving up? That was a big hit to me. And what I realized at that point is, oh, I'm a little bit seasonal. Mm-hmm. And I didn't equate it to that at first. I'm like, what happened to this $4,000? I'm like, next month's going to be 8. The next month's going to be 12.
I remember that.
Yeah. And guess what? No, it doesn't work like that. And now I'm getting consistent, and now those weird gaps don't matter as much, and I'm not getting heady about them, and I understand the routines. But in the beginning, man, a swing like that can knock you the hell down.
Well, but even the 4,000, you know, where is that? Who are these people?
Yeah,
you know,
well, he started on Amazon,
Yeah.
whereas I started on Shopify. So he went straight into Amazon FBA, where there's somewhat
Support.
natural organic traffic happening. My product was heavy and took me a long time. I was building these by hand. You know, each strap took like 4.5 minutes, and it was like bone-breaking work. And so I would pretty much make them to order. So I'm doing it off of Shopify. So yeah, like I told you, my 4,000 came from one viral video over like a weekend. His 4,000 because he put his product on a platform that lent itself to traffic. And that comes into your product analysis. You know, don't make something that can't scale, because if you're making one-offs, like I started this business, the only place you can put it is on Shopify. And the only way you get traffic to Shopify is a ton of meta ads, like minimum of $1,000 a month in meta ads.
Yeah, well, I think the Amazon thing in itself is interesting, because I think a lot of people, I mean, look, if I was listening in, I wouldn't have known that was possible. You know, that, oh, you can put it on Amazon, and there's that much organic traffic that you could just
and you still have to hustle. I mean,
Proceed with caution.
Right. But even that, you could make anything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you're more maybe pragmatic, or
I think Marcus was pretty heavy on his social media the month that he launched it.
I did 45 posts in 45 days every single day, and that absolutely changed the game. I wasn't killing it because of that, but I was definitely consistent because of that.
Yeah.
So
Amazon does not do you any favors on its own.
No.
You're either running PPC ads, or you're doing your own social media posting every day, or you're doing paid meta ads. Organic Amazon traffic is, he said he did $4,000 his first month. He'd probably say it's fair to say he might have done $500-600 in sales if he wasn't pushing it.
that makes sense. Yeah.
And that's not enough to say, I have a great idea, I'm going to keep on pushing. You know, you got to drive it, no matter what. And Etsy and all that stuff, they get zero traffic.
Yeah.
Like Etsy's and eBay's, any other third-party platform you're thinking of, and you're thinking, oh, there's a buttload of shoppers on there. Very competitive, and you're not going to get any traffic. Especially Etsy now, they're very pay to play. Like, they want you to run their ads and do all their crap in order to get traffic. So no.
Well, I think even just like any sort of, if I was in your shoes, I think that organic, just getting any sort of money would have been huge for me as like like it would give me more faith in myself. I think
it lights a fire for sure.
And to this day, one sale for me is a win. Like I wake up every morning, I check my little thing, and as long as it says like one, for some reason that just it just gives you a little bit different zing than seeing zero there. Because you're like, I'm still still good.
Yeah, zero's hell.
It is. You're like, one, we're still in it.
Yeah.
Somebody still likes my product. It may be a silly way to think, but at least it's like the one, I don't need 17,000, sales. I'd like that, and I'll get there. But for now, that one little one's like, all right, we're still in it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
For me, it's $600 when I open my eyes in the morning.
Yeah.
If I haven't made $600, I'm depressed the rest of that day.
Yesterday was the first day that I woke up in the morning, I opened my phone, I had about $450 something in sales, and I thought, I'm making money doing nothing.
You made more before breakfast than you used to make a day at your day job.
And that's it's funny, and this was yesterday. I've been doing it, and I have had good days, but it was the first morning that I woke up and I looked at that, and I almost gloated to myself. I'm like, I did nothing. I'm doing nothing, and I'm making money. And that's like the whole point of why we do this, and that's what we're striving for. And yesterday was an authentic first morning for that. So hey, you'll get there.
I took a nap the other day, and my wife gave me shit. And I looked at my phone before the nap, and then after the nap, I said, "It's okay, honey. It was a $400 nap."
I mean, those are the stupid things that you start getting to say, and that's when it becomes good.
Yeah,
No, that's great.